All right, well, as people are beginning to join, it's great to see so many people on the call today. We will begin, and we've got a lot to cover today. So I'm delighted that we are able to share our Building a Future-Proof Staff Survey programme with you and talk through a great case study. And we've got Lisa talking later on as well. So what's to come? We've got some intros. We've got Andy talking, and Andy, I'll let you introduce yourself actually.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy Keegan, the Head of Reward Staff Engagement at Wellbeing, at Liverpool John Moores University. Thank you very much for having me along today.
Oh, you're welcome. No, we're really looking forward to your session. Landy's going to take some questions as well after his session. So we have got some already, but if you've got any questions as we're going, please do pop them in the chat section. And then we've got my colleague Lisa talking about building local capability. So Lisa, do you want to say a hello?
Hello everybody. I know some of you already. Yes, I work quite we work in HE together, both Jane and I. So I'll be talking a little bit about the future of work and sort of starting to fill that gap when it comes to data analytics a little bit later. So lovely to see everybody.
And I'll just begin with a few updates from People Insight right towards the end and doing a little bit of a wrap up before we should hopefully close a minute before 12:30. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an update in terms of People Insight, who we are, for those people who don't know who we are. So we really focus on making sure that the university, the HE sector is a great place to work, helping with making action happen. We challenge, we share best practice as we're doing today, and looking at possibilities. What if, where do we want to be? What would that look like? What would great look like? The products and services are intuitive, our platform, and user-friendly, all there and designed to support you get the most out of those staff listening activities. In terms of People Insight, well, we provide the tools, support, expertise to successfully implement your employee voice activities, looking at now, the present need, but also looking at in the future as well. So where do you want to be? What does that listening strategy, that bigger piece look like over, say, 3, 5, 6, 7 years' time? We have a really great platform, the People Insight platform, which supports with the actual survey, the reporting of the data, and also it has the ability for you to be able to manage your own surveys via the self-serve option as well. So it's very scalable, it's swift and intuitive in terms of the platform, and we're constantly developing the platform as well. We've got amazing people that work here with expertise in the higher education sector to help with the questionnaire design, interpretation, facilitation, presentations, capability build. We've got a whole range of skills and expertise that we're able to share with you through our people. And in terms of action, well, that's what it's all about, making sure that things happen post-survey, that change is happening, the positive change linked to, the organisational outcomes. And I am, feel incredibly proud and privileged to work with so many amazing universities on their staff listening activities. It's a massive passion of mine, and working with the sector. We capture the views from, well over now 300,000 HE employees. We work in partnership with clients, organisations, universities on their programme, their bigger picture of where they want to be, and helping to support to get there. As a result of working with a huge number of universities, we have very strong benchmarks that are constantly updated. So we're able to provide benchmarking for the university sector that's current, live. As you can imagine, we've had lots of surveys closed in the last couple of months. So all the data is updated. And we're also able to provide you with benchmark data for individual groups of universities, so like Russell Group, London universities, post 92, and academic professional services as well. And we've even got a Scottish university benchmark now that's small but growing, I would say. So we're constantly looking to adapt as well in terms of the benchmarking. And because we work with so many universities and we're seeing amazing practice, we love sharing best practice, shouting out and letting people know what's happening. We do case studies. We've got case studies scheduled, talking through different experiences. We're running our webinars, and I have a commitment to run webinars every other month. So I'm constantly looking for speakers, people who want to share their experience. I've already lined up the next guest for the next one in February, which will be King's College, who will be talking in February. And we recognise outstanding workplaces in the university sector where we see high scores. So that's where engagement's over 79% and the response rate's over 71%. We're able to recognise that with our outstanding workplace award. And we have had universities meet that criteria. And also hot off the press, I thought it might be useful to share. We've seen some amazing response rates in last month in November. So very hot off the press. And this is really unprecedented from my experience working with the university sector over many years. So really high response rates. We've had one HEI with 88%. Okay, they were less than 1,000 staff, but that is a great response rate. And another one with a response rate of over 80%. So 82% response rate is fantastic for the sector. I have been asking them in terms of, you know, what are the reasons why you're recording such a high response rate? And for many, it's around the comms, having a really strong comms strategy and making sure that the senior leader is very much vested in the programme. So in one of the examples, the senior leader was out talking to staff, going to different meetings and groups about the staff listening activity and how personally he would be looking at the results. He will be making sure that actions are happening afterwards, and he's really caring and wanting to hear what staff have got to say. So going to well over 30 different meetings and really talking very passionately about the survey, and that has filtered down to different groups. And you know, there's that real commitment from the top that listening is important. Also little nuances like making sure there's different methods for collection, so having the QR code as well as the email go out, popping that QR code on posters everywhere so it's really visible for people has certainly been some of the reasons when I've asked as to why those response rates are so high. So I thought it would be nice to share as an aspiration maybe for some as well. So just moving on, I'm going to hand over to Andy to talk about the Liverpool John Moores University Staff Engagement Survey experience. So Andy, over to you. If there's any questions or comments, please do pop them in the chat and we'll see if we can get to any during the session.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Jane invited me along today just to talk about our experience and you know, in terms of our staff survey, where we are and where we've been and where we hope to get to with it. And to understand sort of where we landed at the moment, there's a bit of background. Firstly, for Liverpool John Moores University, we're based in Liverpool. Obviously, we have 2,600 members of staff, approximately 26,000 students. We're not the only university in Liverpool, so hello to any of our neighbours if you're on this call. But some of the background aspects that we'll cover is 2018 was the last time we carried out a survey. And this is my first year in terms of really leading on this particular process. I've had some involvement in the past, but during that particular period and leading up to 2018, we had a combination of in-house data analysis, linking with an external provider, and then do some of the analysis internally. And often what was happening was there was a delay between both of those particular processes. There became, at the time, an exec bottleneck in terms of the then Vice Chancellor didn't want to share any of the comments with the exec team, didn't want to share any of the comments with the directorate, was very protective over some of the information and how that could be interpreted by members of staff. And is that the true form of what you do a staff survey for? You want to find out what the meaning, what the staff voice is, and then be able to act on it. And as a result, that delayed any kind of actions being undertaken and then communicated. And by the time it come to, you know, you've communicated that this is the result and now we're moving into actions, you're basically in the next process for running a survey again. Staff lost faith in it. Staff lost, they didn't want to buy into it, didn't want to engage in it in any single way. So I think it's important to note that that legacy issue was there, based around the culture that was in the university at the particular time. Then the pandemic hit. We didn't carry out any staff surveys, but we were linking in with members of staff, and it was very much through a reactive space, so to say. And I think at the time we had our finger on the pulse to check, okay, well, what's the feeling among staff? But again, really from that reactive phase, because we were going through that particular pandemic, we all had to change our processes. We all had to engage with these fantastic software like Teams and, putting sessions online. So it was very much reacting to the particular situation. Since that particular period, we've had a change in the executive leadership team. We've had a new executive director of HR come in. We have a new HR strategy, the people plan. And within that, you'll see there's each of those particular levels. We can use a staff survey to measure how we're performing within each of those. And as you see, central to that, I once called this an onion and got told off. It's not an onion, it's layers. So within the particular layers, at the core of that, you'll see is engage people, and how we can measure how our staff are engaged. Key aspect of that is through a staff survey. We went out to tender, contacted a number of organisations, and People Insights was successful. And what I will say is, right from the outset, what we were impressed with People Insights was the dashboard, the ability to crunch the data, the ability to benchmark against so many other HERs within the sector, and the ability to drill down, particularly with the IDEC, to present something that's quite easily captures all the information that you need to relate to the members of the team. So following that particular period, we moved quite quickly. We tendered the beginning of 2023, and we moved very quickly then into establishing a comms strategy within March and April. And this was as Jane was saying, in terms of some of the success that she's seen across other HERs, it was enabling the executive team to start filtering this out. So from the exec team, look, this is coming. This is your chance. This is your voice, your opportunity to tell us how you feel within the university. Ensuring that we'll capture it and the QR codes, ensuring that those members of staff who are not engaging with emails, that we have paper versions, leaflets, it's dropped into team meetings. This is going to be coming, keep your eye out on it. And that was, 2 months prior leading up to it. We launched within May. And as part of the launch, we had a number of weeks across the comms and screens across the university saying, your LJMU voice, it's here now, have your say, please fill it in. And as part of that, as an enticement, we gave everyone a free drink. At the end of the screen, we put in a message. If you take a screenshot of this, you can go to the LJMU cafes across the whole campus, and you'll be enabled to a free coffee. And of course, with People Insights have a scheme with the Eden tree planting project. We obviously, for every one of them, we hit that home that we'd like to plant a tree for every survey that's completed. I'll mention the kickback in relation to May in a second, but we were conscious at the time we're carrying it out. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. We're in UCU, we're in dispute. So we were reflective of that, thinking, okay, well, this is our first one for a number of years. I'm reflective of that in terms of both the participation rates that we'll get, but also in terms of the responses that we'll see come through. So we have to be mindful, okay, let's set this in stone, see where we come from, but understanding the times that we're in. Kickback. So in terms of, we launched in May, and we got a lot of kickback from our academic colleagues in terms of, this has landed in the middle of assessment. This is, heavy workloads. Obviously, we're in dispute, and there was all of that to and fro in terms of with the union. And to be honest, to challenge this, I said, this is not our first time at the rodeo. Okay, every time we've done this, it's not the right time. It doesn't land. We've done it in December. We've done it in October. We've done it in January. We've done it in February in those previous years. And it's the same message. It doesn't land for you. We're going to have to pick a time, and we're going to have to stick to this. So that, and where we can organisationally, we'll make amendments to this. But this is the time it's going to stick for going forward now, because I'm fed up of hearing that, to be honest. So we did receive some kickback, and we dealt with it, but we managed the situation going forward. So, as I said, we reflective of the period, the 53% response rate, which I was advised by Jane is not too bad. It's there or thereabouts within the sector, obviously not with the 88s. And I think, it's been a while since we've done one. I was heartened by it. The exec team were upset, particularly our director. But I said, look, it gives us a foundation to build on now. And you can see there across the screen that the various areas of the university. The vice chancellor's still hunting for that one person in his office who didn't fill that particular survey in. But you can see from that professional services, we did have lower engagement from the academic faculties. So something for us to work on and consider as we go forward. Moving on to our results, really, really good results. And we're really surprised by what came out of this in terms of the 76 engagement, and it was 3% above the HEI benchmark. And it was really, really good to see. And, you know, and in terms of the academic sort of staff benchmark and the professional services, we were over by 7% and under by 2%. So again, from a starting point of view, it's really good. And quite often within the exec team, very quick to look at, okay, well, where are we doing bad? Where are we doing? You skip over all the good stuff. I was like, well, actually, take a look at this. You know, people are proud to work for LJMU. They care about the future. They recommend it to friends. Let's not get lost in actually, you know, okay, you want to address what's coming out in the lower responses, but let's reflect this. Let's see, you know, let's celebrate this. So there was a period of like, actually, we've done really, really well, given the period that we've been through, given some of the negative aspects that we've experienced within the past. Okay, then on to our results. This just gives a quick break view over the thematic areas, and you can see, I think health and safety. I was looking at this, and it says we have put a lot into the university in terms of capital development, ensuring health, clean, safe, shiny new offices. But realistically, across all of the themes, is that the easiest one to score on? I think it probably is, and in this sector, I think it's probably one of the easiest scoring ones. Culture and values, really impressed with, because we've done a lot. We've relaunched our sort of values for the university, and we've done a real lot in terms of communicating and making sure people are engaged with that. Some of the other ones that jumped out, we knew we were going to get health and well-being. Aspects of those questions are made up around workload, working excessive hours. So we knew there was going to be some kind of potentially unfavourable responses within that area. Recognition and rewards, yeah, we knew that was going to come. But in addition to that, you know, within that, it's looking at opportunities for the development, opportunities for the people to develop their career, members of staff to develop the career. So when we picked through some of those comments, it was interesting to see what people were saying. And of course, with every staff survey, leadership get a bit of a panel within it. And as we go through to show our highest and lowest scorings, I think some of the legacy aspects we can still see are still evident within that particular scoring. So we move into sort of our key findings that we've seen from the survey. Our highest scoring, I've got really good relationships with my colleagues, and yeah, a lot of our staff across the university, we have really long service members of staff, and I think what you get, the sort of feeling that you get from LJMU employees is it's like a family. And people are really engaged with the teams, and I'll say the teams that they work with. They stick together, they work together, and you know, they really love coming into work. Understand how the role contributes to the positive student experience, success at the university, and there you see that health and safety question scoring in there quite high. Then if you flip that, so I think if you look at the really positive aspect of people love the teams, that the departments, the faculties that they're working with, once you take that outside of it, begins to impact and the relationships start to break down, and is some of that built up from this silo mentality. And we can see from other anecdotal feedback that we have from the business partners engaging within the different areas that that's a real issue for us. How do different parts of the organisation collaborate and work together? Some of this is driven by culture. Some of it's driven by systems and processes that we put in place. A constant issue is professional services registry will put a process in place. Have they engaged with the end user? What's the impact on the end user? And, you know, have you considered the timescales that you're putting this in terms of the academic calendar? So there's a lot of work to be done around that, and we'll talk about some of the actions as we go forward. Perspectives like mine, including decision making, yet that linked into one of the diversity inclusion questions, and whether that sits in the right place, we'll have to consider for the next survey that we do. But it ties into what we've just said. How are you involved in decision making? How is different parts of the organisation involved in the decisions that are made at the top or by particular teams? Executive leadership team are open and honest in their communications with staff. What was interesting for me within this point is that grey area. that 42% of neutral. So it gives us an opportunity. I think I can clearly see that we've got from the past that legacy issue, but this gives us an opportunity to work on this going forward. And then, you know, I believe action will be taken as a result of this survey. Again, a legacy issue that we've seen from the past. So the 3 thematic areas that come out of our actual staff survey: communication and cooperation, again, cross teams, cross university, systems, processes; learning and development, opportunities for growth; and leadership, visibility, communication. This is just a quick nod to our ELT action plan that was, you know, in place. We released the survey findings in June. We released it to all directors. All directors had access for their own areas. They had access to the comments that were provided for their areas. And we asked them to have a completion of objectives set by October. Within that, ELT have had an action plan. And you can see they've already begun across the university going out. And within that action plan is, you know, ensuring there's a 2-way flow of communication, that channels are open, either through these networking events, or there's a team site set up that at particular points, at particular times, all of ELT will be on Teams and members of staff can post their questions to them. Learning and development was the second organisational action, and that's an opportunity to make sure that everything's captured on Actus, which is our performance management system, and ensure that clear plans within there. And across the next couple of years, we'll monitor that and we'll be able to identify areas where they're not putting in career goals, or they're not putting in career plans, or they're not maintaining the system aspect, and be able to act upon that. And then that collaboration and cooperation piece, the cross-functional working teams across the university with thematic challenges, either from a process or procedure point of view. Academic admin, we know workload's a massive issue, but some of the process that we've put in place, or some of the systems that we use, doesn't necessarily help the academic colleagues that we have. And I give one example of that. We used to have a finance role that was based in the faculties that would deal with all the purchasing and the iBuy system that we use. That was removed centrally, and it caused such a massive issue. To me, that's a quick win. Let's look at how we solve that particular problem. So some of those aspects are ongoing, but I think it's good, you know. The first session was in November. We've asked for all of the actions to be complete by October. We're showing live, we're moving quite quickly on it. And I think that's the message from today is anything that we do in this space, we want to be able to move quite quickly on it. And that's not even to say that we've got the answers here and now, because we won't, but it's to communicate to staff and say, look, we're doing something about this. ELT, we're visible. There's an active culture change here going forward. Just onto the actions continue. So we have across the directorate, up to last week, well, up to just the final moments before we submit this presentation, we've now got 100% of directors with their actions inputted into the actual platform, and that's good for us because we can see them, we can help them, progress them, and make sure that they are progressing, and it's not just tick box, I've done that, we can move on from it. And there's some that we'll have to work with in terms of, actually, that's not an action, you should have done that in any way, but we'll help you develop further actions going forward. So 154 actions on the system, and 14 of them have already been completed. And they're really quick wins, just changes within the office, changes within the teams that they could have done. But the key themes that have come out from that: development, communication, particularly within the director. If there's a block coming down from the executive, how the director are communicating the information and making sure that it's getting out. Celebrating success was a key one. Again, I go back to that point. Everyone always look, even the executive team, but where are we bad? You're glossing over what we're doing well here. Make sure we're celebrating it. And a lot of the university, we are doing a really, really good job. So let's make sure we celebrate it and have the recognition practices in place to do that. Collaboration, sharing of information. Environment. This wasn't necessarily the shiny buildings aspect. It was the team, the department, the locations team sitting together. How can we rearrange the office? How can we change the office so that we can have better collaboration internally? And then well-being, and I mentioned that administrative workload being a key aspect within that. There's just a couple of examples of the actions that come out, and to be fair, a lot of them are quite easy, quite quick wins. You know, ensuring that stuff's logged on the system, creating a team site where everyone can have a voice, you know, and that's following something that's happening at a school level, replicating at a faculty level. An interesting one there in terms of how they adapt AI into the program leadership to reflect on marking and assessment workload. I'll be interested to see how that one pans out going forward. But that's just a couple of examples, and I think it's important for members of staff to see actually the exact actions are there, and this is how we're taking them forward. Okay, so this is the last slide. So we're very quickly moving into the sort of next steps and gearing up for next year. And what we sort of advised with the exec team and for all members of staff, because we still got that legacy issue, and we've still got, you know, the doubters and, you know, concerns around anonymity and who's going to see the results. We've been through it. This is a line in the sand now. Okay, judges, as we go forward, forget about what's happened in the past. We set the markers now in 12 months, judges then in 24 months, let's judges then on that. So it isn't important to have that line in the sand, but at the same time, build the confidence. We're still working with colleagues who are still cautious about the comments that they put into the system. So there's a piece for us to do with People Insight going forward, and our data protection officer in terms of, look, actually, it is completely anonymous. Everything's held. Aggregated data comes in. I think there's a bigger piece around that as well needed for next time. But also, yeah, be clear on our progress. You know, early in next year, we'll say, I'm going to steal the NHS sort of strapline there. You said we did. So here's what we've done. And even if it's not to say that we haven't got all the answers now, but this is what we're working on. There's a thematic group looking at administrative academic workload. There's a thematic group looking at the registry process. So being able to communicate where we're up to with those particular themes going forward, and being able to celebrate the success as we do. And then 2024, we go again. And we hopefully, you know, by the end of this process with the people plans over 7 years, we're hitting that 88%, and we're getting that outstanding reward. So that's our aim, our challenge that we look to achieve.
And you've really done it at pace. Thank you so much, Andy. That's, you know, a really great overview of this, you know, beginning of the listening activity now and building on it in the future. And it really has been at pace, hasn't it? So you're at the position now where it's like, you know, these actions are starting to be felt, and also, you know, getting ready for measuring progress again. Exactly, you know, so even though it's a 12-month period, that's, you know, it's still quite pacey.
Yeah, and we were keen, and I think some of that's come from the legacy in terms of, you know, the delay on the comments. Share the comments, you know, that aggregate the anonymous. If it's a true reflection of the voice, see it and act on it, deal with it. So there's no point in doing these things.
No, you've given access to the direct, you know, you've opened up the platform, haven't you? So obviously different universities do it differently, but you've opened up the platform to allow people to see their results, their insights at their restricted area.
Yeah, and I have to caveat that with, you know, some members of the directorate were nervous because they didn't want to see it. And again, I take it's the context of the timing, it's the context of the scenario, and we'll know where there's pockets of disgruntled employees, say. So you have to take that in context with what's being, you know, put in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to see it. See everything in its totality, and then be able to act on it, embrace it, have the focus groups, chat it through.
Well, thank you so much. It's really, I hope people in the audience have found that really useful. If you've got any comments then or questions, we've already got a few questions that have come in. So I think I've just taken control. Yeah. And a few questions that have come through. And I thought it'd be nice to ask you, Andy, following the presentation just now. But if there is any thoughts from people in the audience on these, it would be fantastic for you to note them, and we can share them around, because obviously there may well be differences of opinion. So the first question which came through was, you know, how, and you did touch on this, Andy, about the impact of the recent strike activity on the survey responses and kind of, you know, what you did to mitigate that.
Yeah, and I think it's in the comms. We knew that the period that we were in terms of, there was dispute with UCU. It is a cost of living crisis, you know, but if you are aggrieved at this particular point, if there's stuff that you want to change within the university, tell us. This is your opportunity to engage with us, not necessarily through the unions, through the survey. Tell us, management. I think the key piece that I probably missed out within that was the role that executive leadership would play in this, and the director. We were quite clear from the outset that actually, you know, the exec team are going to lead on this first and foremost. They'll be the first group to develop their actions. Then it'll be the director. Then it'll be into, you know, at a local level. So we sort of, we know it was coming. We knew it might impact on the 53. Well, it did impact on the 53% in participation rate. I think it was just being receptive to that. It's going to be in this particular point, and we can only build on that going forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so the benchmarking, how did you use the benchmarking? Was it, you know, in the presentations? Is it like context, the celebrations? So how did you use the external benchmarking data?
So it's a combination of both, and I think, you know, for you've seen at the beginning that it's in both in the celebration, but also to mark in terms of okay, well, how are we so far away from the HE norm on this? How are we so far away from the academic norm on this particular area? And it gives you food for thought, but you can explore further in the focus groups. But I think for an organisational point of view, the 76%, you know, we've committed in the people plan to be 10% above the benchmark, and that people plan's over 7 years. So the benchmarking data for us will be important to see, okay, actually, this is something that we need to work up. In terms of each of those thematic strands within the plan, the benchmarking will play a key point within that. Having said that, this being the first year, it's not as important in the first year. For us, for the first year, it's understanding where we're at. Okay, where are we at this particular point of view? Don't get me wrong, the directors at a director level, they love the benchmarking, they love to get into and they love the ability to, you know, dissect the information and break it down and go down those rabbit holes on it. But from an organisational point of view, I think the external benchmarking access is something that we'll build on each year.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. And then, you know, I suppose you've already mentioned about the building on the survey, and I know you've got plans and ideas for the next survey of tweaking, updates. So anything you can give in terms of building on the survey results year on year and how the programme's going to progress?
Yep. So I'd say the most important part for me for next year would be ensuring that we've celebrated something on the success side of this again and celebrated the actions that we've achieved, but being clear that, okay, we're still working on this and then moving into the next phase. And I think some things that we can build on, and, you know, we've had conversations about this already, is how we enable access to all results for staff. You could do it through columns, you can put it through an email, you can do the focus groups, you can put it on the web. But I think a way to engage every member of LJMU in this is give them a form of access, give them an option to go on that system and be able to see what it means organisationally, but also what it means at the local level. And I know there's further discussions on how we can achieve that, but I think I'd like to see something in that particular point of view going forward.
Yeah. Well, if there's any, thank you, Andy, so much for just, you know, coming along and sharing your story. I think it's a great opportunity to reflect on all of the great work that you've been doing across the university, and so much more to come as well. And seeing progress and what happens next is going to be great. It's great to be part of. If there's any comments, or, you know, if you've got any thoughts on these questions, pop them in the on the chat. Everyone's being very quiet at the moment, which isn't always a bad thing, but it is, you know, if you did want to, please do. And we're going to, thanks Andy for that. Going to move on now to Lisa. So Lisa, I think you can take control.
Thanks very much, Jane, and thank you so much, Andy. I just looking at one of your pieces of data that you shared, I just it would be interesting. So I was looking at the question around the executive leadership team is open and honest in how they communicate with staff, and I noticed that grey area was said 42%. I just wondered, since you had the survey results, obviously there's been lots of different communication. Do you think if you did a pulse survey now, you would see quite a difference in that score?
No, I'd say give it a little bit more time. I think some of that, because you can interpret that question in many ways, can't you? And I think, you know, is it visibility? Do all levels of the organisation understand who the exec team are? You know, I was really surprised to see that some senior members of staff in the organisation didn't know who the exec lead was. For me, that was massively surprising. But then going out and saying, okay, well, actually, how often is this communication filtered down? So one other aspect was the 3 things you need to know at this point in time, and 3 things that are coming in the future that you should know. So as I say, over those 2-month period, I think if we get to February and you ask me that question, I'd say, yes, there's been a massive difference. But at the moment, I'm always optimistic, but at the moment, I'd say, let's embed some of these, you know, getting them out across the university, and also enabling that Teams chat approach to it.
I've just noted in my diary to give you a call in February, see where you are. But anyway, thank you so much. It was really great to see the journey, and especially at speed. So I'm just going to quickly talk a little bit around some of the other products and services that we've been building out at People Insight to help HE specifically. Because over the years, we've noticed there's often been a few gaps in how managers, leaders, users of our dashboard take their insights, take their data and make it actionable. So I just wanted to throw it out to everyone and put your hand up or put it in the chat. But what do you believe will be one of the most important skill requirements by 2030? You can put anything in there. It would be great to get other people's views. What about you, Andy? I know you're probably, but what do you think will be an important skill requirement, especially within the HE sector by 2030?
Sorry, I think digital skills is going to be massive for us in terms of going forward. And I think it's something that we're looking at with a piece of software, not directly in my area, but LinkedIn Learning. And obviously how we filter that in then going towards recruitment. So how we're assessing digital skills at a recruitment, from a recruitment perspective. So I think going forward, I think that's going to be a massive input for us. And I noticed a couple of people have put in the chat there AI as well, which is, yeah, of course, it's going to be.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I think with AI, I actually got the Harvard Business Review magazine. I don't often get it, but I was traveling at the weekend. I'd really recommend. They have a whole piece on AI. So if you're interested in understanding what some of the cutting edge businesses are doing, that would be, I would suggest you get that. So yes, I'm going to talk very quickly about data analytics, which links to digital. As you can see by this slide, and the slides will be available to everyone, but this is from a McKinsey publication, and there is the link here. So if you wanted to go and have a look at it, but it's starting to look at the skills now and in the future. I think a scary number that I saw recently was that 40% of students have stopped doing computer studies at GCSE level since 2015. So as we're ramping up as companies to look at data analytics, AI, actually in the school environment, people are actually doing it less and less, which will be interesting. I haven't delved into that data, but it'll be interesting to understand why. But as you can see from this graph, it's very much showing us where the technical skill will be. That's the light blue spots. And as you can see in the actual graph in the bottom, I mean, it might be my bottom right, your bottom left, but you can see that these are sort of limited but growing. And you can see in there that we've got sort of advanced data systems, and then technology design, and then we're moving up into sort of basic digital. So I think what I wanted to share was how are you using staff surveys to start to build the capability of your staff, whether that's leaders or managers. So alongside that, I think it's important that we always, if we're in the HR teams, I'm a fellow at the CIPD, and I often get involved in some of the mentoring around that. And one of the things they're using is the 6 steps for really helping organisations move from sort of what was very hierarchical decision making to community decision making. And again, you can go on their link and have a look at this if you haven't already, but this connects very neatly with what we do at People Insight. So it's 6 steps. So when we are asking, that's us asking in the surveys or the focus groups or the one-to-one interviews, we're asking for information, we're acquiring that and appraising that, and our dashboards are doing all of that insight for you behind the scenes. It's then aggregating it, and then it's down to us, the humans again, to start to apply it. And then over time, as Andy mentioned, is how are you measuring key areas? How are you assessing those key areas? So just, you know, a bit of a linkage here between the future and currently what's available in helping us to do that. How are we helping? So we are developing dashboard users, capability in understanding, analysing and interpreting insights. And I know if you've attended some of these webinars before, Jane may have mentioned we have run workshops and programs to support our clients' needs, and we can flex on that. But this is basically what it looks like. So often it's a modular approach because we want to be really flexible. We want to encourage as many people to get involved. And I think where we've seen the best success when action planning and improving scores, because it's about in continuous improving, is when there is more access to the data, you know, more transparency, more opportunity to act on it. So in these workshops, we really start to refresh and help people learn how to interpret data, how to use our dashboards for other data as well, whether you have hygiene factor data, say HR data, and how you can connect the two. We also look at how we bring in some of the best practice models out there and theories to enable you to bring people on the journey with you. And then how we support people through that change curve. So change is continuous. Even if you look at the graphs, the old style graphs, it seems to be, you know, all in one line in as few curves. It is actually continuous all the time. So how are we helping our people move through that? And finally, our workshops finish with a case study. So you're actually using the dashboard, you're using data, you're using information to build smart action plans. And I think, you know, the success of that is very much summed up by this quote. One of the people attending said, "I feel ready to get the survey results now. Today's exercise felt a bit overwhelming in terms of how much data there is, but actually we were spotting similar themes in our group to the rest of the group. So I feel less daunted by this when our live data arrives." And often when we've done sort of focus groups, we've noted that why people don't act on data or go into their dashboard is because they're not sure how to use it. So, you know, let's not make assumptions. Let's really bring some activity there. The 11 skills we were measuring when we ran these workshops have seen a 19% increase in what was a very short period of time. It was literally 5 weeks. And 89% of the participants, which was over 300 people, feel they can now turn insights from their people and culture survey into smart actions. So I just wanted to share that because it's a gap for some people when we're looking at that. But using your survey as an opportunity to build towards the 2030 skills, I think is a clever way of coaching and developing the skills of the future. So it's just a little bit from me today. If you're interested in understanding more, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll take back control. There we go. So we've had a couple of questions come in, and one of them, which I just wanted to share and raise, and maybe one for Andy, but also for anyone else who's got responses, has come through about how to get staff involved and engaged who are in the harder to reach groups. So I'm thinking things like the catering, maybe estates. So if anyone's got any thoughts, I can obviously share something, but it'd be great to hear from the sector. Andy, I don't know if you've got any thoughts you would be keen to share.
Yeah, I think for us, it was a combination of, you know, once we'd started the comms on this, we were into local line managers and we're getting them to champion it. So if you think about the case, so a whole of the states area, there was a push at one point to try and incorporate paper-based, which I sort of rejected. I said, okay, come on. I think we can still do this through a sign in and engage with them. So for us, we gave them time. We organised events where they could come into an IT suite, leave the work early, you know, for 20 minutes, go in, we put some tea, coffee on, enable them to get in there. There's someone on site who can help them log onto the system, help them go through the action of the survey, and then leave them to go through it. And I think it wasn't just HR leading on this, it was the director of the estates team. So I think it was really good to have them central, as opposed to this is not a HR function, this is something that's a university process that we're engaging with. So in a short answer to that, give them time off to go into a room and do it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it where there's been that time aside, engagement from the manager, and it's really clear that the survey is for you, your role, we care, we're listening, you know, this isn't just an academic survey, which in some cases, you know, they think, oh, this isn't for me, this is for a different group of staff. So being really clear in the comms that it's for everyone and what's going to happen afterwards. So I hope, Claire, that might have answered your question, but if anyone's got any other thoughts on that, please do pop in the chat. I'll just say another one which Debs has mentioned about Andy, how have you gone about integrating any potential pulse surveys or experience surveys in what you're doing, or are you keeping your annual survey sort of separate for now?
I think it's separate for now, but and I know there's something on the slides about survey fatigue. We did get that. We have an annual sort of team wellbeing risk assessment survey that we have to do. We're required to carry out, and that's captured by the health and safety team. And in terms of dovetailing into that, they're really the two surveys that are in operation at the moment from a staff organisational point of view. And it's identifying themes that come out of that and the themes that are common within the staff survey, and making sure that the two of them are joined up in terms of one executive lead over it. So Tina, who's our executive director of HR, will have an oversight over all of those particular themes that come out. I'd like to keep the staff survey as its own and not do too many of the pulse ones. We may change as we go forward, as we begin to develop along this particular journey. We may get to a point where actually we don't need the annual survey, it becomes biannual, or we just do pulse surveys to keep our hands in. So at the moment, as it's still early, there's those two, but there are identifying the themes within that. I hope that covers that bit.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And we're definitely seeing like organisations having that bigger listening strategy. So they're plotting out the moments that matter, as they might speak to say, you know, we want to do the exit survey, the onboarding, or we've got a particular issue on a certain area, so we want to focus on that. So it really can link to some sort of listening and bigger listening strategy as well. So just to follow up on some of these questions that came in earlier, so just in terms of timeline from planning to implementing a survey, that's a really good question. And our response would be, we move pretty quickly at People Insight. We can set things up fairly quickly, but typically, so I'd say 4 weeks minimum from planning to getting this survey live. If you know, that's minimum. We've done it for some universities. It's been a push. But lots of universities like to have that time to be able to get the questions right, to be able to engage with the right stakeholders, to get the comms planning done, to work on the data. So it can take longer. So, and just making sure the emails are going to come through. So I would say 8 to 12 weeks is a good period of time for planning, especially when it's your first one potentially, to actually getting the survey live. Can be shortened, but it does depend on how many potential committees, working groups, etc. you need to go through or not. And so I hope that potentially helped that with that question. Lisa, in terms of the balance right and avoiding survey fatigue, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think it comes back to a little bit about both what you and Andy were saying. You know, it has to be a very strong why about why we're asking questions and when we're asking those questions. So when people have visibility of when things are happening, they're less likely to get fatigued by it. But the critical thing is we respond. So when we ask questions and people give us their feedback, that we make sure we respond in some way or form. That doesn't always have to be action. It could be redirection. It could be signposting. It could be actually, you know, re-communicating information that hasn't already got out to other people, depending again on the questions. And I think just going back to what you said, Jane, in regards to what is the timeline for planning, I think when you're doing a survey for the first time after a period of time, making sure those questions, your baseline questions, have the rigor behind them is really quite important, because that will be a base for you to build on for the future. So I think, you know, again, that's going back to that why. I also think about the experience. When you're asking questions, how many are you asking? Because it's not just about the questions in the survey. It's also sometimes demographic data. There's sometimes open text, which we encourage, quantitative and qualitative. So what is that person on the other end? What's their experience like? And how are they feeling through that experience? Is there an opportunity to share information within that survey or when you respond? So making the whole activity more engaging, more fun, more responsive, and then people start to feel really heard. And I think Andy spoke to, you know, how they were responding, how they're visualizing things, how the ELT are very much, you know, leading on this. And it was great to see, I'm going to call it the onion, Andy, but it was great to see the onion, because that's when you can get really clever with your questions and measurement, because you're really starting to measure your people strategy and use this survey information, especially when you're looking at your theme and factors, in a way which is much more meaningful. And as soon as people start to see value from that, they're more likely to get involved. So again, clarity on the plan, be really clear on what questions we're asking and why. and how are people going to hear that information, and what difference might that make? I.e., you know, we'd love to see in the future that a good baseline survey actually designs the people strategy for the next 3 years, rather than being sort of reverse engineered. That's when we can get really clever. We can really start to be agile and pivot, because we can do some nice pulses to really measure, are those things working? And, you know, we now have the technology to help us. So it's really about how do we commit to that? That's my thoughts on fatigue.
Thanks, Lisa. And Andy, like it makes sense to ask you the one around any strategies to get buy-in with the meaningful action plans, considering, you know, you've got 100% of, you know, your directors who've actually logged an action. You know, how did you go about encouraging that? And also, you know, the 3 overall actions at the institutional level, you know, how did you get the exec team engaged? Did a certain exec take one of the actions, for example? It would be great to hear on that.
So I think from the exec point of view, I think we moved at pace, as you said. It's like, okay, these are the results. This is what we need to act on. And it was clear that we presented the results to the exec team. And in the afternoon, the whole of the directorate seen the same presentation. And it was a case of, okay, you're going to have access to the system. You've got access to all of the information now, and we expect this of you moving forward. And I think, again, going back to that legacy aspect, actually having the directorate in one room and showing them the information, it's like, okay, well, we're seeing it live. Okay, I want to get into this. Okay, I want to understand what people are saying. The other aspect of that was I hounded them. So across, you know, from when we released the information to them, right up until before I submitted the presentation, it's like, come on, you're the last 8 people who haven't provided the information on it. Let's put these in there. You don't want to be the last ones. And just having an ongoing communication with all of the group is saying, come on, we need to get these in there. We need to be able to communicate on these, and we want to have meaningful actions going forward. But I think that early access and the access to everything within their particular area, we're all in this together. It's open and honest, transparent. The tools are there for you, showing on the IDEC actually how you've got a lot of information presented for you. It's important you do go in and do some of the analysis on it, and you analyze the comments, but a lot of it's done for you. Print it out. I've started conversations, and you'll get into that. So I think that helped us. The legacy issue, the top down, being involved, and also a bit of encouragement from me to get them in the system was the way we got there in the end.
Well, no, it's thank you for your honesty. I think that's, you know, it's great to hear, you know, how you've got to that stage, and as you say, there's still work to do, but you've got that position, and you're able to report on that as well. How many directors you've got, who've put the action plans in. Thank you so much for answering those questions. So just a few minutes left from me. Got some updates to just share with you now. One of them being our technology update. So obviously there's been a few comments about AI, and here at People Insight, we're cutting edge and trailblazing AI from our side in terms of the survey technology. So I'm not sure if you've logged into your dashboard, if you have got a dashboard at the moment, and you might have seen a new feature at the bottom, which is Finn, our AI assistant, that we put onto the reporting dashboard and to our self-serve admin side as well. So if you have got a question, or if there's something that comes up, or you know that you want answered, it's pretty effective and quick in terms of getting back to you, and you have got that human support as well. So whilst it is AI, it's also linking to a human being too. We're also really excited because we've got lots more developments with AI across the platform, so to help managers to analyze, look at insights from across their data that comes through. So we'll certainly be keeping you informed in terms of what's happening, but hopefully if you've got dashboard access, you'll be able to use Finn and give Finn some questions and see how Finn responds. Some other things that are happening as we look ahead is we're going to be working on the IDEC. So Andy spoke about the IDEC. We're going to be giving it a bit of an update and making it a bit more user friendly. So that's coming early next year. We're very pleased about that. We're doing more in terms of linking to HR systems. So get asked quite a few times, and we're to support universities with linking to their HR systems rather than like the participant file that we do for many universities. And we're also looking to do some Teams integration for when we do the surveys to release them through the Teams app. So again, we'll be letting you know as a potential option, and that's springtime next year. So lots of developments happening with our platform, and we do listen in terms of any thoughts, suggestions. We put them on our roadmap for discussion as to what gets on there and not. So if you have got anything, then please do share with us. Also, just wanted to say as well, and it was great to hear from you about the directors logging into the tool. We've certainly seen a really big move for more universities actually using the action planning functionality. And I was doing a quick check, and we've got over 50% of the universities now using the action planning, and managers and leaders popping their actions within the dashboard and being able to see that and look at reporting over time. So that's fantastic from our point of view to see that action is happening locally within the tool. And finally, just to mention, I did mention last time on the Learn and Share that we've been working with UCEA on what's it like, some overall trends in terms of working in the university sector, and things to nurture, things to celebrate across the sector, and more like the EVP really for the university sector as a whole, because there are some amazing things about working in the sector, and sometimes they might get overlooked, including your holidays over Christmas, are certainly one of the benefits. But regardless, we've used the data from our benchmark and benchmarking database to provide this report. So I believe it might be being released next week, and if that is the case, we will be sharing ourselves the report to you as well, and it will also be on the UCEA members area too. So once we're able to share that, I will certainly do so. And finally, just to say, Andy, you touched on the Eden reforestation, where we plant a tree for every survey response, which many universities take up. We're also, I'm very pleased to be able to say that we can plant 100 trees for you being our guest speaker today, Andy. So thank you very much for today, and for everyone who's attended the session today. So I do hope that you found it useful, and certainly you'll be helping the environment with the tree planting as well. And that's really it for today in terms of the Learn and Share. Just to pop in your diaries and your calendars, the next one is going to be the 7th of February. As I mentioned earlier, we've got King's College London, who will be talking about their programme and all of the great work that they've been doing. So please do bob that in your calendar. If you've got any comments, questions, please do get in contact or pop it in the chat. And just to say, I hope everyone has a really great break when we get there in terms of Christmas, and great celebrations in the run-up and Christmas time too. And hopefully, I'll see a lot of you very soon. So, thanks again for today, and thank you very much to Andy and also to Lisa too. Thanks
you. Thanks, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.